Watasuis Mikonanog, Nutumas Ikonke Wapanaak, Nutumas Nipmuk, Nutumas Cherokee, Nutumas Cape Verde Islands, Natai Providence, Rhode Island. Wachia, greetings everyone. My giving name is Many Feathers, Many Talents, and I am from the Sikonke Wampanoag tribe. Wampanoag people also with lineage in Nipmuk and Cherokee tribes, as well as lineage to the Cape Verde Islands, which is off the west coast of Africa. And I am originally from Providence, Rhode Island, and now reside in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, but I'm actually back home. So I'd like to kind of give knowledge to the land that we're on right now in Rhode Island, to the Narragansett people, to the Wampanoag Nation, as well as the outlining sister tribes, Shinnecock Nation, Pequot, Mohegan, Massachusetts, Pokanoket. I think I covered everybody. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry, but thank you so much for having me on today. Man, my boxing journey's been crazy. I've been professional for 13 and a half years. I am the former WBC, UBF, and IBA middleweight world champion, the current IBO, WBO, and WBA super lightweight champion, and I was the first woman to ever be on HBO back in 2018 when I challenged Cecilia Brækhus for the welterweight undisputed championship with over 1.4 million views. I'm glad they didn't tell me how many people were watching before we went out there. Yeah, this whole journey's been crazy. I started boxing back in 2008 and kind of found the reason why I fight in representing Indigenous and mixed Indigenous peoples everywhere. Kind of found me. It didn't start like that, but it found me. Yeah.
Nice. Let's step back a bit of your beginning of childhood. So is it boxing always been part of your life, part of your family, or is it something that you kind of found a passion for as you're growing up?
Kind of found a passion for it. I'm one of 5 kids. My mom has 2, so it's myself and my brother Aaron, and then my father had 5 of us, well 4 of us that we know of because we know how that goes. So I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. I'm the baby, and I come from a really artistically and musically inclined family. You know, everybody has done something music-wise, singing, rapping, music. I started playing the violin when I was about 9 years old. My father was on tour with Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, Al Green, like he's done a lot of stuff. So very musically. I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, where we don't have my personal clan and my tribe. We don't have land. We're still trying to get land back. So I love that hat. But I come from what you call a first contact tribe. So we are relearning, reconnecting. And I would say I like to call myself kind of self-made first generation woman of my line and my family that was actually growing up in the culture. But, I'm the urban native, so I wasn't native enough. I wasn't black enough. I wasn't Cape Verdean enough. It was really hard for me to try to find my footing, especially being from an area of Rhode Island that's predominantly Portuguese, Italian, Cape Verdean, and my mom grew me up as she was relearning. So as a kid, I just we go to Bow Wow, we go do this. This is what we do. I know ceremony, and we're relearning language from a child, as well as she was a Christian growing up, so it was very confusing as a child. Go to powwow and ceremony, but when we go to church, I'm two-spirit, and it's accepted here in some areas, and then in the church, I'm a abomination. So very early on, let's say from birth, I was always fighting for something, fighting for acceptance, fighting for love, fighting to find my place, and just fighting all the time. So that I guess you can say was always instilled in me. And directly where my line is from, we had a great Massasoit, a great leader by the name of Massasoit Osamiquin, back from the late 1500s to the early 1600s, and he had a son named he had 2 sons, Wamsutta and King Philip, or Metacomet.
Yeah.
And they had their war chief name was Anawan, and I am directly from that line of Anawan. He was given the area of Seekonk, and he actually married one of Massasoit Osamiquin's sisters, and I'm directly from that line. So I guess you can say battle or fighting is just, and protecting is just instilled in my genes. So that's kind of where that came from. But I'm the only one that got into boxing. I played softball, basketball, a lot of team sports growing up. My mom was a ballerina, hairdresser. I'm in a dress, tackling the boys and, fighting the guys and playing football. I was that kind of kid, the rough house one. So the solo aspect of boxing, the self-accountability that you have to have in boxing is really what attracted me to it. Of course I watched Rocky and I loved it, but Rhode Island, I didn't really know of anybody prominent when I was a kid when I grew up, I knew of the Vinnie Paz's and then the Marvin Haglers in Massachusetts, but nobody around here, I really didn't see it. So I thought you had to go to Philly, New York. At the age of 11, between being the youngest, bumping heads with my mother and my father in and out, they divorced really young. Along with neighborhood influences, I started smoking weed because I started going through a lot of things. I was confused. A lot of things were confusing. Wasn't really getting along with my mom. I tried selling weed. It wasn't really a good drug dealer. But the neighborhood I was in, around the age of 12, I got raped by a neighborhood guy that I thought I could trust, and I was embarrassed. I thought it was my fault. I thought my dad leaving was my fault. So I just couldn't find my footing, and that kind of pushed me over the edge. So what did I turn to? Alcohol. That's what was steadily available at my grasp. So I just turned to alcohol. Sports really wasn't doing it, but I kind of got wind of a friend of my mom's who's also Narragansett. He's a wampum jewelry maker by the name of Domingo Tall Dog. And I got wind that he used to be a fighter. So I used to bug him at his stand all the time. Like in between, can you show me how to fight? I heard you used to be a fighter. And he just like, yeah, blow me off. But my mom and I convinced him to show me a couple of things. He kind of, quiet me down, but I got the bug. And from like first punch, she hung a bag in my house. I fell in love with it. And because I came from a place where I didn't really have anybody to talk to or anybody to trust, I had to kind of trust myself and talk to myself. I didn't really have an outlet, and that became the one thing I could focus on without all this other stuff in my head. Being a kid around here, again, there are natives, but it's not predominantly indigenous or native. So I feel very connected to my people when we go to functions. My mom goes to singing practice where I feel that, but not on an everyday basis. I was the token Indian around here. Everybody knew Kay was Indian. I had the smoke signals, braid ties with the thick welfare glasses and the choker for kids pictures. It was like one of those things where I just didn't fit in. But boxing made me feel like I was kind of a part of something. I walked into a gym and it was just, everything went really quiet. And my first fight, I got my ass kicked by some white lady. I was mad. And so we all have these crossroads in our lives, right? I took a right and said, it's not for me. This white lady just beat my behind in front of all these people. Or take that hard left where I'm always taking the road less traveled. And I'm like, well, how do I make that not happen again? Because I don't want that to happen again. How do I get that back? How do I get her back in a sense? And from there, I just really honed in on it. And here we are in 2022 and having this legacy. And fighting for me was an outlet. It was a way for me to express myself, to really be disciplined too, and be self-accountable. Because if I didn't do the work, I didn't have 4 other people on a basketball court that was going to pick up the slack or sub in round 3 because I'm feeling a little tired. You know what I mean? You have to do the work, and you're very self-accountable. And through my journey, I've had one of the most very interesting and up and down careers. If you look at my career, where I started in the middle, I got into accidents. I've had layoffs. I've had dark times. I've had a year layoff where I was a full-blown alcoholic. I've had people tell me I can't box again, but I proved a lot of people, including myself, wrong, because according to a lot of people's agenda, I shouldn't be where I am. And finding a purpose outside of myself, fighting for us, representing our people and where we came from and our ancestors, and kind of paying homage to where I'm from, it just really started fueling me in a whole different way and really want to represent who I was. And I call it my medicine because nobody can tell you how to pray. Nobody can tell you what your medicine's going to be except for Creator. And the feedback I was getting energetically, that became my prayer. That was, okay, I don't sing. I don't really do this. I don't bead or anything. That's not where I feel the most at home and most effective and energetic. When do I feel? When that bell rings, when I'm in that squared circle, just like when I used to fancy dance, I feel that energy. So I turned it into my ceremony and invited people to come with me, i.e., play whatever you want to play. If I'm on somebody else's land, invite them to represent who they are, have a grand entry, so to speak, and just, get ready for battle to fight for our people. And that's how it found me, kind of.
I appreciate that. I just want to share a comment that someone put up. Someone said she's a real life bruise. So that from the character of Halle Berry, right? The film
Yeah.
Bruise. So I've seen part of it, but for me, it takes a while to watch. My wife and I, it takes a while to watch that type of movie, right? And also, talking about the film you just in, right? It's a lot of historical trauma, and stuff, that family has gone through, right? So, and I know I appreciate that someone sharing that comment, but that's a whole different issue that could be covered as well, And I appreciate you for sharing that. And one of the reasons is I'm an uncle of over 17 Afro-Indigenous nieces and nephews, right?
Wow.
So yeah, so they're the oldest is 18, probably 19, and I'm only 35, but I feel like a grandpa already, So one of my nieces, yeah. So I want to ask, what can you share? Any type of motivational message, with our kids who are Afro-Indigenous, just as a position that you are, coming from a historical trauma background and fighting that and becoming, going on the world stage, right, and then being a professional boxer and breaking those barriers. I like for you, give you a piece of time and see how, you share some knowledge and wisdom with our Afro-Indigenous kids, and especially adults that are watching as well, who are finding themselves returning back to their communities.
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. Myself and a panelist of, I think, over 10 people just had this discussion called Color in Indian Country. And, the taboo of the anti-Blackness, not just in Indian country, just the anti-Blackness everywhere, it's just been something that has been I guess it's been part of human history. Like, Black is not good, or Black is associated with so much negativity. And I've experienced personally, I'll kind of speak on my experience and then kind of give you kind of a guideline of kind of how I ended up where I'm at, because we're all kind of like a work in progress. The most racism I've ever faced wasn't from white people, wasn't from Spanish people, wasn't from Asians, it was from other natives, honestly. And it baffled my mind to think that I felt like I had to prove myself, and I knew where I was from, but it was so bad that sometimes I questioned, well, damn, like, am I really native? Like, then you have this thought of the blood quantum and percentage, and I don't care if you're 5%, whatever. If you feel that in your heart and you know what makes you come alive, I don't care what percentage you are, or where you're from, or whether your tribe is federally recognized or state recognized. If you know who you are and you're connected to your history and you know where you come from, I can say personally, learning and seeing on paper and really learning the line and who you come from reassured me when I needed it. I don't need reassurance anymore. I'm very proud. As a matter of fact, I'm even more proud that I'm Afro-Indigenous or Cape Verdean and Black and Native, and so from so many different areas, because it's just proof and it's a test of time of how strong our people are on both sides. Cape Verdean people, Black people, the slaves, the Native people. I still know where I come from, and I'm just as strong as the warrior Weedamo, who was also in the same timeline as King Philip, Metacom, Wamsutta. She was a woman warrior. I am just as strong spiritually and culturally as she was, immersed in that time, because of how I feel and where I know I'm from. I've gotten called every name in the book. I remember this was a long time ago, but it was the first time that I really started embracing fighting for what I'm fighting for and really kind of putting myself out there. And I had like a small article on powwows.com, and there was a specific picture of myself with a shawl that my mom gifted to me, kind of showing the world that I'm okay being what I am in all of this. And it was my interpretation. And I got murdered on that. I got called every name. You're just a Black girl trying to be native. Call me all kinds of names. It tore me down. It broke me all the way down. And this has happened for a very long time. It just made me realize that I was so busy putting my energy trying to prove myself instead of knowing exactly where I come from and who I am. And I don't fit in a box because I'm me. I'm very unique to who I am and where I come from. So that's my biggest advice is to anybody, no matter what age you are, especially coming from an Afro-Indigenous background, is learn, even if you just learned that you are whatever, take the time and reconnect. I think the support of communities sometimes is very not a warm room to walk into. Sometimes it's very cold, because and understand where it comes to, as Native people, we want to hold our culture and our people and what we have left of what almost got ripped away from us all over the place very close to us. So it's hard to share. Even having open powwows open to the public is very, very sensitive, because that's our ceremony. That's the time we're finally able to speak our language, practice ceremony in public. But so I understand that the perception or the vision of a lot of communities trying to keep it to themselves. But when somebody's reconnecting, I think we need to speak on support, because just because I don't know my language fluently and you do does not mean you're better than me. Just because you come from a federally recognized tribe and I come from a state recognized tribe and I'm half Black and half Native doesn't mean that you're better than me. It means that you had the privilege to be able to get those stories, that language, that culture passed down. It didn't skip a generation. My people were almost taken out. King Philip's War was one of the brutalest wars and one of those most bloodiest wars over here. And we had to go into hiding. So we had to mix in order to not claim we were Native, especially Wampanoag people. We weren't called the Wampanoag people originally. We were the Pokanockets. That's what we came from. And we got renamed Wampanoag by, different things that happened to identify us. The one thing that really scared me that I found out going through where I come from and learning the lineage was there was a law that was in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island, that stated if you verbally said that you were Wampanoag, and if you was a boy or a girl 14 and older, you could be killed on the spot. That law was not abolished until like maybe early 2000s, late 1990s. I was born in 86. So to know that, number one, that law was still around when I was alive, and then to really go into residential schools, that the last one was closed in 98. That's so, like, people want us to forget about it, Black or Native. We can't. We're going to remember it, and we're going to speak about it, and we're going to put it on the table so we can heal from it. So if you're just finding out and you're facing some difficulty, the biggest strength is just to keep searching, keep reconnecting. The deeper you reconnect, the more proud you can be. And it doesn't matter what anybody has to say about who you are, who you aren't. Once you know who you are, there's nothing anybody can say to take that away from you. And that's where I found my strength. I don't speak my language fluently. I'm still relearning. I still don't know everything about my people, like, through and through. I love learning about other tribes in different areas because we share kind of like baseline beliefs and morals and ceremony do's, don'ts. But I just love relearning stuff. I say relearning or remembering, because even though I didn't grow up speaking my language, my spirit knows. My spirit remembers. So, and I know, like, when you pray for us, our ancestors never spoke English. They spoke our language. So it's very powerful to know things. And even I know things in Lakota, and I'm like, that's dope, because I feel like it's so familiar. Somebody in there knows it. So that is the biggest advice, is just keep going, know who you are, and be proud. I'm a mutt of everything. Cape Verde itself is like, it was a slave port. So Cape Verde in itself is a mix of Portugal, Spain, Africa, Senegal, Middle Eastern, and they took all the slaves, they stopped there, and 40 years later of independence, you have all like 5 different islands of people. That's a beauty in itself as well. So I wasn't always proud. I was very ashamed. I was like, oh man, I go to these bigger powwows and compete, and everybody thinks I'm just a Black girl, light-skinned Black girl. My hair's really curly and crazy. Oh, everybody thinks my hair should be straight like Pocahontas because that's what everybody thinks. Just stop thinking like that. We are all Indigenous. We are all beautiful. And we're Indigenous to our people. My people are from the Northeast Woodlands. We're next to salt water, so our hair is not going to be pinned straight. It's going to be crazy. Those different things is, there's Indigenous people to the Indigenous land that their people are from. Realize that. Know it and take that and run with it. And don't be afraid to show who you are, and stop trying to fit yourself in a box, because we don't fit in a box. We have our own mold, and it changes with time. I don't fit in the same mold that I was in 10 years ago. I'm a whole different person, but hopefully a better person. And realize, don't put ceilings on your knowledge about anything. I love boxing for that very reason. I learned so much from I learned stuff from a 4-year-old hitting the bag. I'm like, oh, that's great. So we're always evolving.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Just let me read a comment here that someone wrote. She said, let's see. She said, wow, I love that so much. I needed that. Thank you. So just, for us, being on the platform like this, it may be just something normal that we talk in interviews and stuff, right? But it's also understanding that the average tribal citizen or Afro-Indigenous, who may have that in the back burner, right? It's just having that motivation, but then manifesting that and hearing that from someone, especially from someone with your platform, it'll definitely do wonders. A beautiful thing, and that struggle that you come from, right, and that challenges that you overcame. And then just sharing that on a podcast and interviews, that definitely even motivated myself. Because when I first heard about you, it was right before Sequan Power, right? So my wife and I do the annual Sequan Power feast. We do tribal feast for the Power, and a friend of mine, Julie. Julie LeBrake, she's the coordinator for the Sequan Powwow. So she told me about you, that you're coming to Sequan. So I started looking more into your profile, and it was amazing. Just everything that you covered, just researching your background and just like the challenges that you went through, right, and where you're at now. It's definitely a beautiful thing going through that struggle, and at the end of the day, just sharing that experience. One thing I want to ask is, when you're getting into the fight, right? The week prior to, what is on your mind? What is on your mindset? Because I know a couple of athletes, a couple of MMA fighters that I know of have different styles, different ways of getting ready, right? But I wanted to ask you, how do you surround yourself right before a fight? Your meal prep. If there's something a certain dish that you like that may be indigenous or not indigenous, right? A certain type of drink, the way you carry yourself, meditation spiritually. I just want to cover and see how you can share with us of how you get ready for a fight.
So I am, as Indigenous people, we're freaking hilarious. So I always like to surround myself. I like to surround myself with family, and even if they're not blood family, just people that it's just another day at the office kind of a thing. Some people's back rooms are like funeral parlors. I'm like, did somebody die? Like, some people are really quiet. Some people are just really different. And I like things to be really natural, because also I like to have fun. I mean, boxing is very, very serious, but if you don't enjoy what you do, like, it's going to be a job. As soon as it becomes a job to me, I'm hanging them up kind of a thing. 2 weeks prior, we're cutting down in weight. I get a little grouchy because, I might have to cut food down, and I love to eat. I don't necessarily like crave bad food, but for whatever reason, like the 2 weeks prior, I'm like, I want like candy. I don't eat candy. Why am I craving candy? It's so crazy. Or I'll see a pizza on TV. I'm like, ooh, I'm not even a huge pizza person. It's, I guess, what you put in your head that you're not supposed to have something, then all of a sudden you want it. But 2 weeks prior, it's just really maintenance. So we have like a 10-week training camp. The last 2 weeks, if you haven't done what you're supposed to do in the entire camp, the next 2 weeks ain't gonna matter if you run an extra mile. But we usually taper down about 2 weeks prior, and the fight week is kind of like, we do a lot of press conferences, and it's just, going through the motions, maintaining and getting a lot of rest. If my mom's available to come to the fights, I usually have her, like, she was able to come to my last fight. She was able to come and, pray with me. She helped smudge my outfits and send prayers up in my own ceremony kind of for protection. So I really look at, even if she's not there, I usually like video call her. But as I said before, it's more or less like a ceremony to me. So right prior to, it's very emotional, actually. I mean, there's some times where I was on the verge of tears because I was so proud to be where I was, and to see, especially when I'm home, to see, or even when I was in Sequan, to have the bird singers come out. It was so beautiful. It's so emotional, because
I love that.
To me, it's like, it's something that I'm fighting for. I mean, the belts are cool, but you can take the belts and give me the experience, or give me the feedback and the pride people have in themselves. People like, I'm proud to be this now. This is awesome, and honoring too. So, it's honestly, if you are in my back room, you probably get a 6-pack from laughing, because all we do is joke around. Really, it's just like a chill atmosphere, and There's nothing I necessarily want. Sour Patch Kids right after a weigh-in is probably my go-to, Sour Patch Kids, because I do like those. Because I don't eat a lot of bread, I usually crave fried bread. Like I'm like, dude, somebody, I need to make some quick because I just love that. But I really don't. I like good food, but the Sour Patch Kids gotta be my like go-to. They make me feel like human again after I've been like dead for the last 48 hours making away.
Yeah, I love Sour Patch. You know, it took me a while to love like candy. My wife, Lumana, she might be on live. I just seen her earlier. She loves Sour Patch. You know, any type of flavors. You know, and she'll bring it around. And I try. You know, I try, but I don't eat as much candy as I used to. You
Mm,
know, for me, you know, getting away from alcoholism, for me, the next step that I fell into was sugar, energy drinks, sodas, Powerade, anything. You know, it was sugar. If I'm making iced tea at home, I eat a lot of sugar, right?
yeah.
So now, you know, being a business chef, you know, I learned to balance that in a way, right? I still have cheat meals and stuff like that, right? But I use a lot more natural sweeteners like agave, honey,
Mhm.
maple syrup, right? So, yeah. So thank you for covering that. I think one of the last questions that I would have is so many questions that came up in my inbox the last couple of days when people found out I was interviewing. Is they want to know more about the film that you're featured in, that you starred in, and also co-directed or produced, I believe. Um, can you cover how you got into that film? You know, and just the experience of it. And I know it's you know it's on a heavy heart with a lot of us, you know, who went through that type of trauma, right? And just I just want to cover it quick when you said that when you're ready to fight, right? You have that overwhelming feeling of you want to cry and let that out, right? Because for me as a business chef, when I travel through presentations, I also have that feeling, but I never share that with anyone, right? Maybe just with my wife and a couple of people in my circle, but people don't notice how nervous I am. Sometimes I'm sweating bullets, and then I have that feeling like I want to let out some tears, right? And I believe that us BIPOC, indigenous people, we experience that because like I said, we're breaking these barriers. We have never been in a situation or platform like that, right? And we're bringing that awareness, and we're the first ones in the forefront to break that, right? So, you know, I just wanted to acknowledge that and let you know that, you know, it's okay to feel that, right? It's okay to cry. You know, for me, coming from a single parent household, my single mom, you know, her and my wife helped me to say that it's okay to cry. That patriarchal standard that I once held onto. It's okay to dismantle that, right? It's okay to share your feelings, right? And people, it's hard for people to understand when I talk this way because I come from a background of negativity, meaning on my reservation, off the reservation, I went through all juvenile detention centers, I went to county jail. You know, bank creator, never been to the penitentiary, but you know, I grew up in the gang activity, stealing cars and stuff like that, right? And then now changing my platform and changing my way of life, my lifestyle, right? And mainly my mom, my sisters, and my wife giving me that encouragement. You know, it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to share that feeling, right? So I just want to acknowledge that and share that with you too. Right when you said that, you feel like you're tearing up, overwhelmed. You know, I definitely have that feeling as well. You know, it's appreciated to have that because after a presentation, after a fight, whatever it may be, project you're doing, you know, after that, you have that good feeling like you're on top of the world in a positive way, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it is work in progress, but you know, we just find our ways to fight these battles for sure.
Well, thank you for saying that because I think there's a lot of people, men and women, especially men, that need to hear this. Okay, it's okay to cry. I mean, that stigma of you're only strong when you don't. No, you're even stronger for being so vulnerable. I found me personally, I found a lot of strength in being very vulnerable and open, um, and just being relatable because that's kind of how I've found being comfortable with telling everybody. I'm an open book, but I've seen so much feedback from people, especially the work I do with teenage girls, is the way to get to them is to be relatable. They want to talk to somebody that looks like them, yes, but feels the same way, or can just understand and listen and just be really, they feel like they're not alone. You feel like you're not alone when you hear somebody is going through the same thing as you, because feelings have no prejudice. They, you know, if I'm sad about my pen breaking and this one's sad about her mom dying, sadness, but we're at the same frequency. It's just, it's amazing how just being really relatable to one person and comfortable in your vulnerability makes everybody kind of relaxed and comfortable. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, so the last question, I spent 30 minutes already. Wow. The last question I have is, yeah, how you got into filming that, the film, how you got into it, and then for you, your personal life, and also starring in that film. I want to ask and share with the audience that how that feeling was when you started and during the filming, then after. I know there's three different categories of feeling into confusion, maybe sometimes. And I just want to see how you're able to handle those situations.
It was a very, very cathartic experience for myself. Number one, because I was brought on as a creative collaborator very early on in the creating the story with Joseph. Oddly enough, it started off as an Instagram. He slid in my DM back in 2017 and had this, just like most of the general population, didn't really know much about MMIW, and he was just learning about it, being a very already established filmmaker and a director. And he reached out to me. It was kind of like a bare bones script of a strong person that lost somebody. And he, was sharing with me what he knew, and I shared with him what I knew personally, and from my perspective and from the perspective of a community that I represent, with different stories that I've experienced, as well as a lot of stories that got told to me just sitting down and talking with different families and people. So he asked me if I ever wanted to act, and I'll share this because our words and our thoughts have huge impact on our everyday, our every moment. And being from an artistic family, my grandmother was in theater. My mom had me always doing some stuff in like church plays, and I was always making some stupid character up around the house. So I always had a very expressive personality, but for whatever reason, creator put acting on my heart. And I was in a really different place in my life in 2017. I lost my brother to brain cancer, one of my brothers. So the time where Joseph approached me, I was like in limbo with things. And a week prior to where he hit me up, I was sitting outside and I'm just talking to whoever's listening. And I'm like, if acting's meant for me, then it will find me. A week literally to that day, that's when Joseph inboxed me, and I decided to answer his inbox, and here we are. That's how I got originally into it. And he just really wanted to know me. He saw that I used my boxing platform to bring awareness to different issues. And he liked that about me. He also knew Joseph's such a beautiful human being, this beautiful soul. He's Polish and Japanese. So we connected on being, biracial, or mixed kids. We both had siblings. We connected on that. And the fact that he knew that this was an important story to tell, but it wasn't his to tell, was something that was very, very humble. It was just a humble approach. And he wanted to get the perspective. He sat down with a few of my elders. We have 2 women producers that are on the film, just to get a woman's perspective. And he just really wanted to make sure that he told the story right. And so did I. So it was more or less over a 2-year collaboration of just going back and forth and sharing ideas. And when I was go to different reservations or communities to speak and to listen, because when I visit communities, I don't want to be the only one speaking. I also want to sit and listen, and just sharing what I knew. And we wrote the script about, I don't know, maybe a dozen times here and there. We toyed around with different things, but just the themes, the really important themes that we wanted to bring awareness to this, especially being a mixed indigenous woman from the Northeast Woodland tribes. We can all name like 5 different Native actors who've been in every movie since the dawn of time, but we really don't see mixed indigenous, especially we don't see a lot of Northeast Woodland tribes being represented. So even that aspect was kind of important to me to bring to the table creatively, especially representing Cape Verde. Like, no one knows what Cape Verdean is. So I had a heavy hand in just overseeing different themes, even to as far as the character Jeremiah, who was also Native on that side of not the good side, was a very conscious decision to even touch on self-hating. There's so many different layers to this. So I didn't physically write it, but I had a heavy hand in even the language as far as how to say things, how this person would say things, different scenarios. I always was trying to keep the film and the storyline grounded in reality. And Joseph, he uses this quote all the time, that the story had to be unpredictable yet inevitable. So he brought to the table his creative eye and his industry knowledge of it had to be entertainment. It had to be using genre film and genre a thriller is going to draw people in, to be entertained, quote unquote, but to throw some awareness at them at the same time. And the fact that I had my boxing as well to kind of draw in that strength. We wanted this person to be really strong, almost like she got pulled from graces after her sister went missing. And even this strong warrior woman is not going to stop this. So that's how I got involved in the process, pulling a lot of different things from my real life, i.e. even the name. Upper Show is one of my other, I got named, I have 2 native names. I've gotten named when I was really young by, he's gone, he's departed from us, but he was a very, very important man in our tribe. His name is Three Bears, and he was our sachem for a little while, and he was a medicine man for a little while, but he named me Upper Show, which means little flower. And so we kind of kept a little piece of me with her last name, Upper Show, which means little flower, that's me, but her being a real boxer, me being a real boxer, her being Two-Spirit, me being Two-Spirit, her coming from a broken home. There was a lot of things that were parallel. So on a personal level, it was very cathartic to get through these things. But just like with my boxing, I voluntarily put these things on my back to fight for. Like, I want to take all this that we have to fight for and use it and make, like, just fight through it for everybody. The ones that can't sing, we sing for them. The ones that can't dance, we dance for them. The one who can't speak, we speak for them. And the ones who can't fight, I fight for them. So just the same way I did it in the ring, I was like, this story has to be told. I will do it by any means necessary. So I knew by telling the story, it was just an artistic interpretation of it. It was in no way, shape, or form an answer, but it's more or less just awareness to it. And it was such a cathartic process, especially being not the worst, the hardest scene to get through for me was towards the end when Kaylee, the character, was looking at her sister. And she was a figure, if you will, but she was looking at somebody to fight for. It's something I do every fight, and I fight for all nations. So that one, oh my God, I could barely get through that scene because it was something that was, I had a physical person looking at me that was like a figure of every missing and murdered Indigenous woman in this. And she's such a lovely young girl, man. She's so talented. My Niaku, who played Wita in the film, and she's like a little sister to me really now. So I'm looking at this girl. It was such a hard day, but a fulfilling day, if that makes sense. It was such a cathartic process. And the fact that we were bringing so many things to surface that is so sensitive, I'm like, I know I got to take this on to get through this for us. Like, this is not just about me. So on a personal level and just as a whole, it wasn't hard, but it was necessary, and it was consistently a moving thing. And I learned about myself. I learned about this character, Kaylee, and having to let go of that character when it was all said and done was like, I had to come up with my own ceremony for her to put her to rest. Like, let her rest now. She's gone through this, she's fought this, and now I have to let her rest. And she's done a good job getting through this for everybody, and let it be. Kind of bringing her to surface, learning her, getting to know her, honoring her, and then letting her rest, which I think is kind of a telltale sign for figuratively bringing things to surface. Genetic genocide, our residential school survivors, things that we couldn't talk about for so long. Our elders have been just suffering in silence with these things that they are so ashamed of. Just like I was ashamed to tell anybody I got raped. I'm like, this is my fault. These things need to be brought to surface. I know it's hard, but the more we stand together and support one another with bringing these things to surface, looking at them, acknowledging them, honoring them, whatever it is, good or bad, and then putting them to rest. That's why so many things are happening right now. So that was kind of my interpretation of how I even got through that. Because I look at the movie, I'm like, that was tough. And I know it's very, very triggering to a lot of people. So I always tell them, it's intense, brace yourself. But hopefully it helps bring a visual to what you're feeling. Because sometimes as humans, we need something visual.
For sure. My wife and I are going to watch the film probably this week, and we've seen the trailer to it. Just like I said, it brings a lot of negative memories and historical trauma, but at the same time, we're building up to that strength to be able to watch it. Because at the end of the day, the film is made for a cause to bring awareness, right? And it's anyone and everyone should be able to see that film. Especially if it's indigenous or independently made. you know, so then having an Indigenous cast as well, you know. No, I appreciate the work you're doing. I think right now, you know, a lot of Indigenous, I'm not gonna say celebrities, I mean Indigenous people on the platform, because there's a difference between activism and celebrity, right? There are some celebrities who are activists, but just to a certain point, right? And I like that. I'm not going to say no filter, but I like that you're honest and you're real, right? And just to say the work that I do with food sovereignty, I'm the same way as well. You know, being honest and respecting the cause, right? But at the same time, you know, we can't lie to ourselves or to the community. Like I said, if we can't share this, then who else will do that, you know? And I appreciate you being honest with that. You know, not a lot of Indigenous people on the platform that you're on are able to do that. Right? They kind of shy away from the real topics. Mm-hmm. Right? So I appreciate that, having that one-on-one, and then for you speaking freely about that too. You know, and I probably speak for everyone who are on right now. So, you know, I appreciate your time. I know you're really busy. I know you're ready to travel. I believe you're going to be traveling overseas. Yes. I believe we're getting ready for a fight. Yeah, we appreciate that. And I'll definitely look into the pay-per-view if it is and see how we can definitely get into that support, you know, and I'll share that here on the podcast page as well. You know, so again, I would like to appreciate and acknowledge your time, you know, spending time here. And I have the cafe running upstairs with some of my coworkers as well. So they gave me 30 minutes to come down and do this quick interview, you know, so it's,
you know, we're long-winded, so it wasn't going to be that one.
Yeah, but still, you know, I still want to make this happen too, and I love that, you know, we're able to talk for even 30 minutes, you know. I believe in the summertime we could definitely come back and do an interview, and I'll have a friend of mine who's part of the MMA community, and I'll definitely have some technical questions from him as well. You know, so again, I would like to thank you for your time, and you know, all prayers and positivity on the work that you're doing. And if you have anything to share with the audience, you know, definitely, you know, you can have a couple minutes to share, you know, some words for sure.
Well, thank you again. Seriously, this has been such a pleasure to speak with you, and I definitely want to come back on and talk and be long-winded and be like 2 hours in. But thank you, everybody, for everybody for tuning in. Thank you for creating the space for me to share my story and asking me to come back on. And the work you're doing with food sovereignty, I think that's awesome. What we put into our bodies is what we get out of it. So I'm all for that. Yeah, and everybody who's watched the film, thank you so much for supporting the film. And, you know, share it with your friends and everybody on here that's following my boxing career. Thank you so much for supporting that as well. And, yeah, I'm in your corner, put it that way. Even though I'm not physically there, I'm spiritually in your corner no matter what you do, and just go get it, man.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time again. So I'll definitely be reaching out soon, and we'll put up some updated news of when we'll be bringing you back in again.
Okay, thank you so much, Tabutni.
Thank you. Have a good day.